Welcome to Crime Scene X. Today's video is about 3 hitchhiking horror stories. If you enjoy, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe for more scary stories. Sit back and enjoy the video. I always thought hitchhiking was just an adventurous way to travel. That was until the day the sky was overcast, and a chill ran through me, not from the cold, but from a sense of foreboding I couldn't quite shake off. My thumb was out, signaling my need for a ride, as cars whizzed past on the desolate highway. Then a car slowed down. A man in his mid-30s, with a charming smile and eyes that seemed a bit too intense, offered me a ride. There was something oddly familiar about him, like a character from a story I couldn't quite place. His car was clean, almost meticulously so, and he had a calm demeanor that initially put me at ease. As we drove, his questions started to feel intrusive. He asked about my family, where I lived, if anyone would be expecting me soon. His tone was casual, but his gaze in the rearview mirror felt probing, unsettling. I began to regret getting into the car but tried to brush off my growing unease as paranoia. The landscape outside began to look unfamiliar, and I realized he had taken a different route. When I questioned him, his tone changed. It was no longer friendly, but commanding and cold. My heart raced as I understood the grave mistake I had made. He wasn't just a random driver. He was someone dangerous, a predator. I knew I had to escape. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to stay calm, to think. I remembered reading about serial killers like Ed Kemper and Ted Bundy, how they lured their victims. I couldn't let myself become another one of those tragic stories. As the car slowed down at a seemingly deserted intersection, I knew it was now or never. With a deep breath, I unbuckled my seatbelt, ready to make my move. The door handle felt cold against my sweaty palm as I prepared to jump out of the car into the unknown, hoping to find my way back to safety. My heart pounded in my ears as I flung the door open and tumbled onto the road. The gravel scraped against my skin, but adrenaline numbed the pain. I scrambled to my feet, my breath ragged, and darted into the dense forest beside the road. Behind me, I heard the car screech to a halt and the driver's door slam. His footsteps followed, a steady and determined rhythm that fueled my terror. I pushed through the underbrush, my mind racing as fast as my feet. Every horror story I had ever heard echoed in my mind, urging me on. The forest was disorienting, the trees like silent sentinels watching my desperate flight. Branches snagged at my clothes and hair, but I dared not slow down. I could hear him calling out to me, his voice disturbingly calm, a stark contrast to the chaotic pounding of my heart. I stumbled upon a narrow stream and paused, trying to quiet my heavy breathing. The water sound might help mask my movements. I remembered reading somewhere that running water could throw off someone tracking you. With a fleeting hope that it might work, I splashed through the stream, moving upstream. Suddenly, a flash of insight struck me. My phone. I had it in my backpack. Quietly, I slipped the bag off my shoulder and fumbled for the device. My fingers trembled as I switched it on, praying for a signal. There was just enough coverage for a text message. I quickly typed a message to my friend, including my location and the dire situation. I hit send, hoping against hope that the message would go through. Then I heard a crackle of branches nearby. He was close, too close. Panic surged anew, and I knew I couldn't wait to see if help would come. I had to keep moving, had to survive. I plunged deeper into the woods, driven by a primal instinct to survive. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow seemed like my pursuer. My mind raced with thoughts of Ed Kemper and Ted Bundy, but I pushed them away, focusing only on the need to escape, to live. The forest seemed endless, a maze of trees and darkness, but I couldn't stop. Not when every step could mean the difference between life and death. The night grew darker, and the temperature dropped. My body ached from the cold and the relentless running, but fear propelled me forward. The forest seemed to close in around me, and every noise was a potential threat. I couldn't tell if I was getting farther from him or inadvertently circling back. Suddenly, lights pierced through the trees. My heart leaped with a mix of hope and fear. Was it him, or had my message gotten through? Hiding behind a thick tree, I peered toward the light. It was a road, and there were cars, real normal cars. I stumbled out of the woods, waving my arms, desperate for someone to see me. A truck slowed down, and a woman rolled down her window, her expression turning from confusion to concern as she took in my disheveled appearance. "Are you okay?" she asked. I could barely form words, but I managed to say, "Please, help me. Someone's chasing me." Her eyes widened in alarm, and she immediately unlocked the doors. "Get in," she urged. As I climbed into the truck, I glanced back at the dark forest. There was no sign of him, but the terror of what might have been lingered. The woman called the police as she drove, and I relayed my story between shuddering breaths. The police met us at a nearby station. They listened intently as I recounted every detail I could remember about the man in his car. I learned later that they found the car abandoned on the side of the road, but he was gone. They never caught him, but I was alive. The experience haunted me for a long time, the what-ifs and the close calls playing over in my mind. I had escaped, but I knew others hadn't been so lucky. The stories of Ed Kemper and Ted Bundy were no longer just stories to me. They were grim reminders of the darkness that lurks in the world. But I also learned about the strength I carried within me, the will to survive, and the kindness of strangers. My life moved on, but I was forever changed. I became more cautious, more aware, but also more appreciative of each day I had. The open road had always been a symbol of freedom for me, a place where endless possibilities lay. Hitchhiking was my way of embracing this freedom, but on that fateful day, my love for the road would be severely tested. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the horizon, my hopes for a ride were finally met. A beat-up pickup truck pulled over. The driver, a grizzled man with a hard look in his eyes, offered a ride with a terse nod. I hesitated, an inexplicable sense of foreboding washing over me, but the approaching night left me with little choice. The truck's interior was cluttered and had a faintly metallic smell. As I settled in, I noticed something unsettling. There was no door handle on the inside of the passenger door. A spike of fear shot through me, but I tried to brush it off as paranoia. However, my unease grew as we deviated from the main road, heading into a dense forest. When I questioned the driver, he grunted, "Shortcut," without making eye contact. The deeper we drove into the woods, the more my panic grew. I surreptitiously checked my phone, no signal. I was alone, isolated with a stranger who was becoming increasingly unnerving. As night fell, the truck suddenly jolted to a stop. The driver turned off the engine and stared at me, his expression chillingly blank. "We're here," he said, in a voice that scared me to my core. Before I could react, he lunged at me, his hands reaching for my throat. My scream was muffled as I fought back with all my strength. The confined space of the truck cab became a battleground. I managed to land a hard kick, pushing him back momentarily. Seizing the opportunity, I grabbed my backpack and swung it at the window. The glass shattered, showering the interior with shards. I wriggled through the broken window, cutting myself on the glass but driven by sheer desperation. I hit the ground hard and scrambled to my feet, the driver close behind. He grabbed my arm, but I wrenched free and sprinted into the forest, my heart pounding in my ears. The woods were pitch black, and I could hear the driver pursuing me, his heavy breathing a constant reminder of the danger at my back. Branches whipped against my face as I ran blindly, tripping over roots and rocks. After what seemed like an eternity, I stumbled onto a clearing and saw lights in the distance, a road, a chance for rescue. I ran towards the lights, waving frantically at the passing cars. Finally, a car stopped. The driver, seeing my distraught state, immediately called the police. The authorities arrived and launched a search, but the man in his truck had vanished into the night. I was left with physical scars and an enduring sense of terror. The experience shattered my trust in the kindness of strangers and the romantic notion of the open road. I never hitchhiked again. My latest adventure was a solo road trip, a chance to clear my head and enjoy the solitude. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, my tranquil drive turned into a nightmare. My car's fuel gauge had been flirting with empty for the last few miles, a gamble I lost as the engine sputtered and died, leaving me stranded in the middle of nowhere. With no signal on my phone and the nearest town about 40 miles away, I had no choice but to start walking. The night was eerily quiet, the only sound my footsteps on the asphalt. After an hour of walking under the moonlit sky, a car's headlights appeared in the distance. Relief washed over me as I stuck out my thumb, desperate for a ride. The car, an old beaten-up sedan, slowed to a stop beside me. The driver was a burly man with a thick beard and deep-set eyes that seemed to size me up in an instant. "Need a lift?" he grumbled, a slight smirk on his lips. Gratefully, I got into the car, but as I settled into the seat, I noticed dark stains on the upholstery that looked suspiciously like dried blood. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced at the driver and saw a gun holstered at his hip. Panic set in, but I tried to keep my composure, telling myself there could be a reasonable explanation. The drive was tense, the silence only broken by the occasional hum of the engine. The man's presence was intimidating, and his occasional sidelong glances sent waves of terror through me. I considered jumping out of the moving car but feared the consequences. As we approached the town, the man finally spoke, his voice low and chilling. "You're lucky you caught me on a good night. The others weren't so lucky." His laugh was dark and menacing. Fear gripped me, but before I could respond, he pulled over at the edge of town. "End of the line," he said, the smirk returning to his face. I got out of the car, my legs trembling. "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. He just nodded, a look in his eyes I couldn't decipher, and drove off into the night. I stood there for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. The others weren't so lucky. What did he mean by that? Who were the others? My mind raced with horrifying possibilities. I reported the incident to the local police, but they never found the man or the car. I continued my road trip, but the joy of the journey was gone, replaced by a lingering fear and the haunting memory of that night. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please like the video, comment what you thought, and subscribe for daily uploads.